Gaming has always played a huge part in my life. The stories, the people, the adventure. So when a festival like PAX comes along and I get to spend an entire weekend surrounded by the community I love, I'm always going to be the first in line. PAX Australia marked the last weekend in an absolutely crazy month for me. I'd just flown back from the US after traveling to 4 different conventions, and I was really jet-lagged, but there was no way I was going to miss out on PAX. As always, the floor was covered with developers, publishers, and vendors, showing off everything from games and tech to things I'll never be able to own in my lifetime ever. I'm looking at you, Musha. There were also a handful of AAAs scattered around between Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo, but to be honest, I was much more interested in checking out the huge VR presence at this year's show. VR was everywhere this year. You could basically stand at any point around the floor and be able to see a setup. It also meant that the lines were the shortest I'd ever seen them. I'd been wanting to try VR for years. I thought it'd be kinda gimmicky. But that opinion changed. VR lets you do virtually anything. You can practice archery, train to be a space pirate, fight Danny DeVito. We're really only just starting to see what the technology is capable of. I like to compare the current state of VR to that awkward 3D stage in gaming. We know what we want to achieve, but we're still trying to figure out the best way to achieve it. Something as simple as moving around suddenly becomes a lot more difficult when you're stuck in a room with walls, cats, and furniture that you can't actually see. There are a few creative workarounds out there like Virtuix's Omni treadmill, but the movement still isn't quite there yet. It makes you look kinda ridiculous, but it also looks like a hell of a lot of fun. But invisible cats would still be a problem. I managed to get some time playing Valve's Longbow minigame on the HTC Vive, which was my first experience with any type of VR, and I learned something very quickly. No matter how cool you think you look, you're just waggling a pair of controllers at absolutely nothing. The weird thing about virtual reality is that you tend to lose a sense of where you are. When you've got the headset on, the only thing you're really concentrating on is what's happening directly in front of your eyes. It's a strange sensation because on some level you realize you're still in a normal room, but it's like your brain just doesn't care anymore. The HTC Vive in particular did a really cool but really creepy trick using the controller's haptic feedback. So Longbow's controls are pretty straightforward. One hand holds the bow while the other one draws back the string. Now here's where it gets weird. It actually feels like you're pulling back an arrow. Valve have somehow managed to make controller vibrations feel like string tension on a bow, but they still haven't made Half-Life 3. Or have they? This next game was probably the last thing I thought I'd see on the floor at PAX. I walked in expecting to see Horizon, the new Gravity Rush, Dead Rising, but I definitely didn't expect to see Shantae. Shantae is the true underdog of the 2D platforming genre. While the series has been around since 2002, it's only really starting to get the recognition it deserves. Half Genie Hero marks the 4th entry in the franchise, and although it looks a little different to its predecessors, it's still filled with familiar retro charm. If you've played any of the previous games, you'll notice that Half Genie Hero has undergone a complete stylistic overhaul. Gone are the signature sprites from the earlier games, which I'll admit made me a little worried at first, but after spending a few minutes with the new design, I was completely sold. Bosses in particular look incredible in the new hand-drawn style. Every one of them is made up of dozens of individually animated parts. Even their idle animations look good. Why doesn't my hair do that? Shantae's also regained the ability to transform into different animals after the events of Shantae and the Pirate's Curse. I don't know about you, but I've always wanted to transform into a blobfish. One of the awesome things about PAX is it puts just as much emphasis on the little guys as it does with the big three. There's always a huge section of floor space dedicated to indie developers, and it's easily my favorite part of the show every year. It gives you the unique ability to talk to the people behind the games that you're playing. If you want to know about their inspiration, their creative process, or why these goats dress so much better than I do, all you need to do is ask. I've been following the work of a Melbourne-based studio called Loveshack for a few years now. I played their first game, Framed, back in 2013, and I didn't realize they were going to be at PAX until I walked right past them. I fell in love with the original Framed the second I played it. The whole idea of the game is based around manipulating comic panels to guide the protagonist through each page. It's one of the most unique takes in a puzzle game that I've ever seen. Framed 2 is Loveshack's latest foray into the world of puzzle solving, and rest assured that it's just as brilliant as the original. The panel switching mechanic makes for some very clever and at times deceptively difficult puzzle solving. While the stages start out by asking you to move 2 or 3 panels at a time, they eventually throw in the ability to rotate frames and reuse them mid-scene. I honestly never knew that being a comic book overlord could be so challenging, but so much fun. Now admittedly, this next indie has been around for a while, but it gets a mention because it's one of the most ridiculous party games you'll ever play. Sortie is a physics-based arena brawler that I've managed to get hands-on with at the past 3 PAX events. If you've ever wanted to beat up your friends with the power of science, then this might be the game for you. Sortie is the perfect example of a simple idea that's been executed incredibly well. You play as a guy with unsettlingly long arms whose combat style is a little unorthodox. Instead of attacking by pressing a button, you swing your weapon by spinning your character. The more momentum you build up, the more powerful your attack will be. It's like fighting with tiny drunk people who've forgotten how to use their arms. Pressing the left or right bumper will essentially glue a weapon or shield to your hand, and then it's up to you to twirl your way towards freedom. You can also jab your opponents by pressing the left or right trigger, but it ends up being a lot less effective than just flailing your way to victory. PAX Australia brings an amazing community of people together every single year. A community that's diverse, welcoming, and ultimately one that I'm proud to be a part of. It's even equine friendly. Never had one lesson.